So, recently I watched a video about just birth rates in Japan, and it just led me down a rabbit hole at looking at worldwide birth rates, and fuck me, it's not looking good, fellas. It's really kind of concerning. You know what I mean? Because Japan has an increasingly aging population, and I believe their people over 60 has increased to around 20 million, I believe, which is just insane. Because the economic situation behind that is based off of, well, okay, so you have all these people who are essentially too old to work and too old to contribute, that this puts more pressure on a dwindling working age population. And yeah, it's really bad. How is that going to be sustainable in the future? Do you just increase the taxation on the young people even more to take care of this aging population that doesn't work, that doesn't really produce anything? And I'm not saying that we should somehow get rid of old people, like the very fucking utilitarian view of just just kill all the old people. They're not productive anymore. I in no way do I suggest that, but it is concerning how more and more people who are around my age and even slightly older, like people in their 30s, have to fucking prop up an entire generation of people who can no longer produce or work. And I get it. We should take care of older people who can't take care of themselves, but why do we have to make it into a communal thing? That's my thing. Because from my perspective as an American, I dislike Social Security. Because it essentially says that, no, you shouldn't plan for your retirement. Just let the government plan for you, which is bullshit. I don't agree with that. That's bullshit. And this is a big problem in Japan. The taxes is pretty high in Japan, but they do have free healthcare. It's a trade-off with all sorts of social programs. It's a trade-off. Same with Europe. Now, Europe's taxation is insane too. But again, I don't think Europe has not the same issues as Japan when it comes to population and aging. Now, they still have a low fertility rate. They don't have a replaceable population, hence why they're doing mass migration. Which, the problem is with mass migration is it's essentially a stopgap, but it's not a sustainable long-term solution to that. If you just look at the data, you'll see that within a couple of generations or two, that most of these migrants start following the same birth rate patterns as the native populations. So it's not a very intelligent thing to do to just replace all these fucking people with a foreign population. And don't even get me started on the social implications on that. You can look at Sweden. Sweden has one of the worst issues with the mass migration, because you have literal no-go zones, and you can't go into these areas. You can't police these areas because of the racial tensions. And it's not even amongst whites or the Arabs or Indians or any number of migrants. No, I remember reading an article about how there was ethnic violence against, was it Bengalis and Indians? Now, I don't know about you, but why is it preferable to bring in all these foreign populations to places that clearly they don't really like being in? They like the economic benefits, but culturally speaking, they're incompatible. They are not interested in engaging in European culture, Western culture at all. They are not interested in that. Hence, why are we trying to bring these people in? And you can't even use the justification that somehow we're trying to solve the birth rate issue by essentially outsourcing birthing. That's not sustainable. Why? Because it's a global phenomenon. If you look at the data, was it? I forget where, but you can look it up, that this is a global phenomenon. That this isn't just located in the West or in Asia. This is happening everywhere, even in Africa. Now, Africa has the highest birth rates out of everyone, but they're still seeing a decline. And you can trace this between level of industrialization and how many people are being born. Because before, Japan used to have insanely high birth rates, even during, the boom period in the 80s, when they had, a massive financial boom, where everyone was profiting, everyone had money, and a lot of people feared here in America, fearmongered, that Japan was going to overtake the American economy. Now that never occurred. And once the boom period happened, Japan, even to this day, is still in stagnation and decline. Same with South Korea. Now South Korea, my God, if I recall, South Korea is around, per every woman, there's a 0.72% or percentile of a baby being born. So they're even below 1. Because most places have at least 1. And the replacement level is, 2.1 for actual decent replacement levels. But they're even below 1 child. It's 0.72. That's awful. That's not sustainable for a country like that. And it's so bad. Because what has happened to South Korea is that it used to be a very poor nation. If you look back in the 60s and 50s, you'll look at this place and you'll see, wait, this is South Korea, the most technologically advanced and most industrious and most capitalistic place, and they're fucking backwater? Yeah, it used to be a backwater, believe it or not. But their president at the time, pseudo-dictator, essentially made South Korea into a corporate state by essentially leveraging these many corporate, essentially old money, all these giant corporate family-owned corporations, to receive state support in exchange for reindustrializing and industrializing this country, which was successful, no doubt. South Korea has a very, very, very profitable economy, very good and healthy economy. Issue is that its population has declined so much, and if you look at the population map of South Korea, you can see that most of their population is in Seoul, the capital, which is kind of funny, because if you think about that, what happens if North Korea just nukes Seoul? Well, shit. You've just killed 70% of the population, because I think that's the amount of population that actually lives in Seoul, in the capital. The capital itself is a mega city. And if you drop a nuke there, well, fuck me, they're fucked. South Korea is just doomed, because if you just blow up Seoul, they're doomed. Even the same with Japan. Now, Japan is a little bit healthier. They are above the below 1-to-1 replacement replacement for birth rates. Japan is, I saw when I was researching, is 1.26. So they're a little bit above. Now, they're not replacing, but they're not at South Korea levels, where they're essentially in the next 100 years, South Koreans are just not going to exist. They'll be extinct, which is kind of crazy to think about. But a majority of the Japanese population also lives in cities. So there is a direct correlation between just how many people live in cities and how urban and industrial a nation is. You can really gauge how the population is going to be continuing, how population growth is going to happen, because it's heavily based on how industrial you are and how urban you are, which is kind of crazy to think about. So, yeah, just wanted to let you guys know just something I found interesting